Hello and welcome back to the Dangerous Podcast. My name's James. I'm here with my good friend Fraser. Fraser, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. Good, thanks, James. Yeah, a bit sore this week, to be honest.
Why are you so?
Well,
Nothing
I've done
sinister, I hope.
nothing sinister. No.
No pirates been hanging around.
Well, I'll tell you why I'm sore quickly first. I've basically fitted a couple of floors, and I don't normally fit floors, but there's a big event, the Bowlsworth International Horse Show, this week
Oh,
and
right,
next
yeah.
week. And my sister knows the woman that owns the whole big Bowlsworth estate, and she asked Elaine to put a nice wooden floor in one of her exhibition tents to make it look fancy.
Oh, it's like a throwaway floor, though. So you put it down in the tent, and then the tent comes down, and the floor just goes in the bin.
Yeah, an £1,800 floor.
Jesus Christ!
But the lady owns a probably £100 million house and estate and stuff.
Yeah,
So
yeah. It's just I don't know.
yeah. But it was a different world. It was in the VIP section of this Bowlsworth show, a big equestrian show, and it's all like, "Oh, Pippin, come here, Pippin," and all this like fucking right. It's like another world. Like their stress is like, "Oh, stress. Oh, I don't like the color you've painted that," and it's like you
Yeah,
don't know what real fucking stress is. You really don't.
yeah. It's like, I have to pay VAT on my private school fees
Yeah.
if Labour get in.
It's a different world. And Elaine, I was helping her out because basically none of the proper floor fitters would have fitted a floor in a tent. And so
It
I
does
did
sound
it.
a bit. What was it on grass?
No, they put some like boards down on the grass, so it was
Okay,
very,
but it's
very
still
unlevel.
unstable. Yeah.
Yeah, it
Okay.
was like being seasick walking across it. But hey ho, we did it.
Well, if you got paid for it, so it doesn't matter, does it?
And then today, I found myself for free fitting a lino floor in a lady that's been housed by the council and basically moved into a house with a carrier bag, and that was her possessions. And they moved her into a house with concrete floors, no facilities, nothing. So everyone in the community sort of rallied round and just helped her out a little bit. And
It's wonderful.
I
See, I
found
prefer
myself
that's a
putting
much
some
better
vinyl down.
story. Like
Yeah, yeah.
how much warmer do I feel inside from hearing that story from the other story where this crazy
I know.
rich lady's spent $2,000 on a floor
Yeah.
that's just going to get thrown in the bin. To be honest with you, the lady that lived in the house that she'd been the council house or whatever, she could have had that $2,000 floor
Oh, I
after it
know.
had been
I know.
sort of anyway.
The sad thing is, the rich people would probably rather throw it away than give it to her.
Yeah, I know. Crazy stuff, man.
So
Crazy.
to one extreme to the other, but both of them fitting a floor, scuttling about like a crab for 2 days, and now I feel like I've been in a car crash.
Yeah, well, it's good for you though. Good for
Yeah.
your sort of muscles or whatever.
But
Exercise.
the story you prompted with the old pirate finger up the bum thing, my little boy Teddy, little monster, was in our garden, and I was watching him through the doors. Just
Okay,
watching
hang
him.
on. Where's this going?
So I'm watching him in the garden, and he's out playing with a dog, right? And he's a little bastard. And he went and pulled a garden cane out of a plant pot. So he's
Right.
wandering about, whacking it on the grass and stuff. Walks over to the dog, leathers the dog 3 times in the back with it. Opened the door. Teddy, you little bastard, stop that. So he like stopped it, and I shut the door. And he just stood, and he looked at me, and he looked at the dog. He looked at the cane. He looked at me again. Back to the dog. Lifted the dog's tail and shoved the cane up his arse.
Oh no, really? Right
Yeah.
up it. Jesus, that could do some damage. That sure.
Yeah, I don't think it went in far. The dog was tearing around the garden quite quickly, and yeah,
It's a good job. It's a nice dog though, because if
yeah,
it was one of these like aggressive ones, he just would have turned on him, wouldn't he?
it was the conscious decision. It was I'm going to stick this cane up his arse. I mean, he lifted his tail out of the way. It wasn't like he just jabbed him. He lifted the tail right up the rusty
Straight
billet.
up there. God. Well, sounds like a fun week.
Yeah, it's been smashing. How's yours been?
All right, I've not really done that much to be honest. Just work, and that's, like I said before, I've got I'm in pain as well. I won't get into detail about that. I'm going to go a bit Bernard Manning actually, because it was my partner's birthday yesterday, and like just women have got this like weird thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we went out for a meal, and I was doing this sort of parallel parking thing. and it's dead hard that, and it's like a really tight space as well. It does me head in, and there's like the queue of traffic just like building up behind me whilst
Everyone
I was trying
watching you.
exactly, and the stress levels were kind of sort of going up.
Mm-hmm.
And then my partner was like, just like something like really trivial, like, "Oh, what do you want for dinner tomorrow night? Do you want like quiche or sausage and mash or?" And I'm like, "Hang on a minute, love, just 1 minute." And then she had a conversation with the girls, and like, and then it just got forgotten about. And then I came home tonight after work. I was like, "Oh, is there anything for dinner tonight, or am I sorting myself out or whatever?" And she went, "We're having sausage and mash. We spoke about it last night. You never listen to me. You never listen. We said that we're having sausage and mash tomorrow." And like, I wasn't really party to it. I was just dead busy, and then
Brilliant.
Yeah, and just lost a temper. That happens, doesn't it? That's like a thing.
Yeah.
It's like the most random. You're fully focused on this thing, and then they just spark up these random conversations. You're like, just a minute, hang on.
I'll have to put my hands up and say I get shouted at by Laura a lot from trying to have conversations with her while she's in the middle of something. So
you're the person.
I'm the one that does it. Yeah.
Right. So maybe in a relationship, it's one or the other.
Maybe I'm the woman of the relationship.
So that's just something I sort of picked up on this week.
That parallel parking. I actually had a car for a little while. Do you remember the big blue 4x4, the big Ford thing I had for a little while?
Oh yeah.
That did that parallel parked itself. You just pulled up and pushed the button.
Yeah, that's the dream. Like Teslas do that, I think.
Yeah, but I hate it. I can't parallel park, and to me it's the exact same thing as standing at a golf tee and about 12 other golfers have walked up behind you, and they're all standing waiting for you to tee off. And it's like all these cars going, fucking, oh, he's having another go. He's gone forward another 6 inches. Oh, he's come right back out now. He's starting again.
I can do it. I can do it if no one's watching. It's like it's usually when there's no one there, it's just like straight in. But when there's like a queue building up, it's like, oh no, not close enough. Anyway. So what next then? I don't know. I can't remember what we do now.
Socials. We started doing the socials at this point.
All right. Yeah. Of course. Yeah. Okay. Go on then.
We've had a good week on Facebook. I think we've increased quite a lot. So thanks for all our new Facebook followers. I noticed we have
50% increase. We've got 2 now.
Yeah. What I have noticed is we've got more Facebook followers than we've got Spotify subscribers, which is interesting. So if everyone in our Facebook subscribe to us on Spotify, now granted they might subscribe to us on Apple or other platforms, but
maybe they should comment on the page to tell us where they subscribe, so we get an idea where we're sort of.
That'd be good, yes. So no, Facebook's up, but if you don't already follow us, Facebook's probably the best place. It's where I give the most information out on things we're doing and put the little promos out and everything. Facebook and YouTube, you'll find us under the Most Dangerous Podcast.
Yeah, go and watch that. We're not. We are going to go live at some point, I think. Like put videos up and stuff, but we can't afford the tech really. So if you want to sort of give us some money, we need to set up that like coffee shop thing. Buy us a coffee.
People can help me buy a laptop that's not secondhand.
Yeah, and then we can start getting videos up then, so people can watch the YouTube stuff. That'd be good.
Something that's a bit grim, actually. I realised today this is a secondhand laptop, and it's usually when you buy secondhand ones, they're like corporate laptops that they've bought very high end. They give them to their staff for 2 or 3 years, and then they fuzz them and get them new ones. I thought
police laptops,
possibly,
the police have like repossessed them, and then wiped the hard drive and sold them on.
And I thought,
you know what I mean?
But this second-hand laptop could have been someone's little wanking machine when they were in a hotel regularly.
Yeah. Could have been Gary Glitter's as well.
Could have been, yeah. And now I've got it. So when I realised that tonight, I was giving it quite a lot of anti-back wipes and stuff. So it's a bit grim, really.
Before you start your own little adventure.
Yeah. I'll be none of that with it. Podcasting, that's what it's for. So anyway, but we have had another email. We keep inviting these emails, and we have had another one, a little dangerous story.
Oh, wonderful. All right. You want to crack on with that then?
Yeah, I'll crack on. This is all the way from Ireland, across the sea.
Oh, all the way.
Irish Sea, yeah.
The Irish Sea.
From a chap called Phil in Dublin.
Hi, Phil. Thank you for the email.
Thanks, Phil. So basically, Phil, all he's done is he's just put a story. He's not actually said hello or anything. He's just gone right to the point. Just, hi guys. I grew up in a small town outside Dublin, and in 1985 we were having our annual 5th of November bonfire. My mates and me were all about 12 to 14 years old, and we were always looking for trouble. Uninterested in the actual bonfire, we just fucked about while the adults let off fireworks for the kids, and it was when they all left that the fun began. We hunted the area for interesting things to throw on the bonfire, anything we could find around the estate, and with it being a rough council estate, there was plenty to get. One of the most interesting things was a lad chucked a shop mannequin on. That was fun to watch melt.
Oh God, sinister. All right, chill out, Phil.
Basically, there was this one mental kid, Declan. Everyone knew one. The lad that always took it too far. Well, he came running onto the green with a Calor gas canister. Before any of us could stop him, it was launched onto the bonfire. We all did one. We ran away from the green expecting a massive explosion, but nothing came. The fire by this time was nearly out, and it was just a red pile of smouldering wood. We all ended up back on the green, smoking some cigs and drinking a couple of cans. The gas canister was quickly forgotten.
How old was he?
12 to 14.
12? He doesn't know his own age?
No, he said the group were 12. He said he said they were a group of 12 to 14-year-olds. So he doesn't actually tell
And they're all smoking, drinking cities. Okay.
Yeah, it's a council estate outside Dublin in the 80s.
Yeah,
you know.
Of course.
About an hour passed by as we just chilled out, and then from nowhere, there was an almighty boom. Yeah. The canister blew into the air so high it disappeared. There were smouldering bits of wood everywhere, and we heard a lot of glass smashing. I turned to my mate Callum, and his face was completely black. We all stared at each other in a state of shock, and it felt like minutes had passed by, but there was another loud crash. The cylinder had come back down and gone through the roof of some poor bastard's cortina. We legged it, all split up, and weren't back out for some time. I was told that several windows had smashed with the explosion, but they never got to the bottom of who did it. Love the podcast, Phil, Dublin.
Cheers, Phil. They will get to the bottom of it now, though, because you've revealed it was you.
Well, yes. It wasn't him, it was Declan.
Oh, it was Declan. That's all right. Yeah. Declan's in prison now.
There must be a few Declans in Dublin, I'm sure. So no, another wee interesting story. We'd quite like a spooky one if you've got one.
That'd be good.
Story. Yeah, like something like that. But no, keep sending them in. They're good to read.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Phil.
No
right. Okay. So we've done the story. So I guess it's time for dangerous news.
Right, James. So today's dangerous news. I'll tell you now, they're all from Sky News, and that sounds like me being lazy, but I went on Sky News, there were 3 cracking stories, and I thought I need to look no further. So,
well, that's it. Why bother?
I know. So the first story is from Glen Rose in Texas, where a family's visit to a drive-through safari took an unexpected turn. 2-year-old Paisley Totten was enjoying a day at the Fossil Rim Wildlife Centre, feeding animals from the back of a pickup truck. Sounds like Texas, doesn't it? Things took a surprising twist when a giraffe reaching for a bag of food accidentally grabbed Paisley's shirt and lifted her into the air.
Oh, wow. You can't, I mean, I love giraffes. This isn't malicious. It's an accident.
It is, yeah. I've never seen an angry giraffe.
I've not an evil giraffe, no.
Yeah. Her father, Jason Tosson, described the shocking moment. We stopped to feed the giraffes, and I turned to look out the back window, and suddenly the giraffe grabbed her, and I couldn't see her anymore.
I know what happens next.
Pickup?
I know what happens next, though.
Go on. Yeah.
I'll get my shotgun.
Yeah. Fortunately...
Well, I mean, that's kind of cool, isn't it? In your back of a pickup, just kind of feeding the animals and stuff.
Yeah, until they go into the lions bit.
Well, I don't think they go into the lions bit.
Bring them in the car, I suppose. Fortunately, Paisley's mum was quick to react and caught her as the giraffe let go.
Oh, wow. Well done, Paisley's mum.
I know, lifted her right up. The incident left the family shaken. My heart stopped. My stomach dropped. It scared me, Jason admitted. After the scare, Paisley got a toy giraffe from the gift shop as a little reward for her bravery. Lying wide awake, staring at it in the corner of her bedroom. In response to this incident, Fossil Rim Wildlife Centre has updated its safety rules. Visitors are now required to stay in their vehicles.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I suppose she was kind of in it, but
yeah, she didn't get out the vehicle.
Yeah, she was kind of in it, but it just didn't have a roof.
No.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just one of them things, isn't it?
I know,
it's an unusual thing to happen, but like you say, you don't get evil giraffes, and the giraffe let her go straight away. It's like, sorry, it's just.
I know it was never going to eat her or anything, was it?
Yeah, exactly. But hope they didn't do anything nasty to the giraffe.
No, I don't think so. But it is, like you said, southern states, America. You might have gone out and hunted it.
Yeah, that's it. Giraffe burgers on sale next week.
Yeah. So, second story is from Camp Hill in Pennsylvania, so still in America, where a black bear made quite an entrance into a residential area. Now, I've been to Florida a few times, and you do get them just knocking about in some of the residential areas. Remember one time?
I've been to Texas.
Oh, you have, haven't you? Yeah.
So anyway,
but yeah, it's just like in Britain we've talked about this and the badgers thing and stuff like that we don't really realise. In Australia, when we talked about Australia, we don't really realise that there's countries that people live that like an alligator could just walk into your back garden, or a bear or something like that.
Like the biggest predator, like wild predator here, I think we've said before, is a fox, isn't it?
Yeah.
So that's like all we've got to contend with, and basically you could pretty much kick a fox to death if you wanted to, couldn't you? Because they're really little.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you say, like in these other plaplaces, you wake up in the morning, there's a bear in your bin.
I know.
Going through your trash. It's a bit crazy. Yeah?
Although I don't think bears actually attack all that much. They tend to do one when they see you. I think a lot of the.
Wouldn't like to test it.
No. So on June the 5th, the black bear wandered into the neighbourhood, causing quite a stir. The bear took refuge in a tree near a local school, prompting officials to take swift action. Students and staff were instructed to stay indoors for their safety. Pennsylvania's Wildlife Agency, along with firefighters and police, devised a plan to safely capture the bear. Using a ladder vehicle, they got close enough to administer a tranquilizer shot. Once sedated, the bear tumbled about 6 meters into a large blue tarpaulin held by a team of rescuers. They're basically like a cartoon, standing with a big thing under the tree waiting to catch it.
Yeah, I mean, that's cool. They didn't kill it. That's good.
Yeah, no. So the bear was basically just relocated in a safe area where it could be released.
Yeah, all people's home.
So that was the second story. The third one was the one that really jumped out. I thought this was incredible. So this is from Commerce City in Colorado, where a man's thick chain necklace quite literally saved his life.
Oh.
On June the 3rd, during an argument, a 22 caliber bullet was fired at a man. Miraculously, the bullet got lodged in his 10mm wide chain necklace, preventing it from penetrating his neck. So I've seen the photo. Do you remember the kind of...
The big chunky chains?
Yeah, the kind of silver ones that people...
Yeah, that's what the image I've got in my head.
Yeah.
The thing
it's
is,
only 10mm, so it's not that chunky. It's only...
Yeah. Like when people talk about, or like news bulletins and stuff, talking about the caliber of bullets.
Yeah.
I've got like no point of reference whatsoever. Like, I think like in America you kind of like sort of understand this stuff more, but like, what was it?
A .22 caliber bullet.
So I guess that's like, I don't know.
From what I've heard, that's the sort of bullet that can kill you.
Yeah, well, can't they all?
Well, yeah, but you can get like the little like pellet, air gun pellets and stuff.
Yeah, that's not a bullet.
No, I suppose not.
So I suppose that's like a handgun kind of little mini thing. Like, is it 2 centimeters? This is what I mean. I've got no point of reference. Is it the length or the width or the?
I think it's like a gauge or something. I don't know, but I know the bigger ones are 45 because you get a 45 Magnum. And that's
all right. So they're
bigger
the big
bullets.
Fuckers, and these are just the little pokey ones that.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Okay.
So the incident left the unnamed man with only a minor puncture wound. The police have released photos of the bloodied chain and commented on social media. We said he'd really dodged a bullet, but in reality, he lodged a bullet. They noted that the necklace, despite its silver appearance, was likely not pure silver. This may have contributed to its strength in stopping the bullet. So it was actually good for him he had a shit necklace. Fake.
It's like a dig, that, innit?
Yeah.
Shit, that, mate.
If you'd had a proper silver necklace, it wouldn't have actually saved you. The suspected gunman was arrested at the scene, has been charged with attempted murder.
So it was like an assassination attempt, was it?
Yeah. They were trying to kill him, yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't just a... Because some people just shoot, don't they? From what I've heard.
Yeah.
People, but so it was a targeted attack.
They were trying to get him. I always thought, and I've heard other people bring this up as well, why do you get less of a sentence for attempted murder than you do murder?
Because you didn't kill him.
Yeah, but you tried to. You just didn't.
Yeah, well, you know, I mean, it's still a pretty hefty sentence, but
yeah,
that person's still sort of walking around alive. So,
but the intention was exactly the same. You just fucked it up.
Yeah, but with like murder,
rewarded by fucking it up.
No, you still get a long time.
But yeah, I always wondered that.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was this week's dangerous news, James.
Great, wonderful, thank you very much. So that's this week's dangerous news.
So that was the dangerous news this week, and the wonderful thing for me is that's my bit done. It's your turn to give us our main subject. So what have you got for us, James?
Yeah, so I've done a bit of research this week. I thought I was going to be really smart. I know, yeah, it makes a change. I thought I was going to be really smart and do something that no one had ever done before.
Right.
And then as I gradually sort of went down the rabbit hole, I realised that every single person in the world, every single podcast that sort of is in our genre has done this.
Right.
The BBC, have you ever heard of the BBC podcast called Uncanny?
I've heard of it, yeah. Never listened to it.
So it's like a huge, international podcast. They've got a TV show. They've done it.
Okay.
So it was not quite as niche as I thought it was going to be. But nevertheless, we'll just run with it and we'll see where we go. We'll do our version of it.
That sounds like you've got to fucking nail this then.
Yeah, that's not going to happen. I've actually got 4 stories for you today, but they all relate to the same thing. Yeah. So we'll get started. And I suppose, as always, I like to do this. We'll start with a question. And I'd like to ask you, if you could go to any time, where would you like to go?
Any time, right? There's no point in me going recent. I wouldn't like to go anything from 800 to 1800 AD because there was just too much fucking plague and shit going on. I'd probably like to go really far back, like proper Aztec, Egyptian, something like that.
Oh yeah, go and see that for real.
Yeah,
that'd be good.
Real,
I'd probably go like
back Roman times, like.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
Yeah,
I'd go like 2010 and just put like $1,000 down on Bitcoin.
Yeah, true.
That's me.
Well, I thought about that, and I thought I wouldn't like to go. I know too much about recent history. I think I'd like to go really far back, where there's quite sketchy kind of notes about the history, just to see.
Yeah, it would be interesting just to see it all and like.
Yeah.
Stuff. I do think about this quite a lot. Like, if I had like a wish, like a genie, I'd like like a sky remote that was like a time travel remote.
Yeah,
like a Bernard watch thing. So like you play, pause, rewind, fast forward, and then like the numbers on it, you could like type the year in and go back, and then like like the favourites button.
Yeah,
the red button would be like the Roman brothel. It's just you go like straight there.
Have you seen the Adam Sandler film Click, where he has a TV remote?
Yeah, like similar to that. Yeah.
He can only pause and fast forward though, can't he? He can't go back or anything.
Might be a bit more advanced than that, I think.
Yeah.
So
that'd be cool.
Yeah, that's what I want. So if anyone can make me one of those, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
But that's going off the point. So today we're going to talk about something called time slips.
Okay.
Have you heard of time slips before?
Yeah. I don't know a lot about them, but it's... Yeah. So
they're basically situations where people experience that they've gone back in time. Like they'll be walking down the street or they'll be in an old place and everything around them just goes a bit funny. So I've got like 4 different stories that they're quite sort of unexplainable, really. So it's a bit sort of paranormal, spooky type thing.
Okay.
There's not really any sort of scientific reason for them, or if they even exist or whatever. Obviously, we're just going off people's sort of interpretation of events. So as I say, we'll go through the 4 stories, and then I suppose we'll have a look at the end and see what you think.
Go for it.
So story number 1. So this is probably the most. This is the sort of grandmother of. What do I call them? Time
slips.
Time slips. I'm sure I'm getting senile, honestly. So,
I'm leaving that in.
Yeah. Sometimes I just lose my mind. So this is the number 1 time slip story, really, like the grandmother of it all.
Okay.
And it's the Moberly and Jourdain incident. It's also known as the Versailles time slip.
Okay.
It's one of the most intriguing, controversial paranormal events in modern history. So this event allegedly took place on August the 10th, 1901, where 2 English women, Charlotte Ann Moberly and Eleanor Jourdain, claimed to have experienced some sort of time slip while visiting the Petit Trianon. And this is a small chateau on the grounds of the Palace of Versailles in France. This story was detailed in their book, the 1911 book called An Adventure. And it's captivated and perplexed readers for over a century. So a little bit of background. So Charlotte Ann Moberly and Eleanor Jourdain were both respected academics in their time. Moberly was the daughter of George... Just check I'm reading this right. Yeah, Moberly. I'm sure that's right. Anyway. George Moberly. So she was the daughter of George Moberly, who's the Bishop of Salisbury.
Right.
And she had a distinguished career in education and eventually became the first principal of St. Hugh's College in Oxford. And she was a woman as well, so at that time it was quite established.
Basically, they're not a group of idiots then. They're quite well-educated,
well-educated people, yeah. Jourdain, on the other hand, she was a scholar of French and English literature and later succeeded Moberly at the principal of St. Hugh's. So she went on and took a job. So yeah, as you say, they're well-educated, and some argue that their academic background and position in society leans on the credibility of their account. So the actual incident then. So on the afternoon of August the 10th, 1901, Moberly and Jourdain decided to visit the Petit Trianon, a retreat built for Mary Antoinette. After touring the Palace of Versailles, they began walking towards the Petit Trianon. As they proceeded, they claimed to have experienced a series of strange events that led them to believe they had somehow slipped back in time to the late 18th century. Now, according to their account, as they walked through the gardens, they began to feel an oppressive, heavy atmosphere. They saw several people dressed in what appeared to be period clothing. Among these figures, they described a man wearing a cloak and a wide-brimmed hat, whom they later identified as... Now, hang on, this is a French word. Comte du Vadrot. So this is kind of like a military guy, like a well-to-do sort of chap. And apparently he was a friend of Mary Antoinette.
Right.
They also reported seeing a woman sketching on the grass, who they actually believed to be Mary Antoinette herself.
Right.
And what are the chances of that? So Moberly and Jourdain described feeling a sense of foreboding and unease throughout the experience. They claimed that the landscape appeared different from the present-day gardens, with buildings and pathways that did not exist in the early 20th century. This eerie journey continued until they reached the Petit Trianon, where the strange atmosphere suddenly lifted and they returned to what seemed like the present day. So that was their experience.
Wow.
Anything you'd like to add?
No, it's hard to, if someone says that that's what happened, I can't see their incentive to lie.
They did write a book about it, though.
Yeah, true.
And they did know a lot about, obviously she's an academic, and then I think they were partners, but you're not allowed to say that back in 1901.
Oh, right, yeah.
And then she's a French and English literature scholar.
Yeah.
So that kind of like, there's a couple of red flags there. But,
Definitely, but yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. I don't believe it, but
yeah, it'd be pretty cool. You'd be a bit freaked out, wouldn't you?
yeah.
So the second,
I was going to say, it's a bit like that Good Night Sweetheart,
that was a bit sick. That I thought.
I watched a whole lot of that just recently, start to
Did
finish.
you?
Yeah,
it's a bit wrong though, because he's like basically having an affair.
Yes, yeah.
Like with somebody in the 40s or 30s.
Is it an affair if they're in completely different times?
Yeah,
I shouldn't
still
say
cheating
that,
on his wife.
Laura listens to that. I totally disagree with it. It is definitely an affair, yes, but
he's like just completely cheating on his wife. Though it doesn't matter if she's like.
Yeah.
It's like saying, well, is it an affair if I shag a dog? Because it's a completely different species, like, so it doesn't really matter, does it?
No, I mean, it was an affair, but what I got from it is basically the modern day wife he couldn't be arsed with, and she was a bit of a dick. He preferred the one in the wartime, but liked his life in the 1990s. And
what actually happened at the end?
Well, it's a bit of a spoiler.
I think it's all right. I mean, how old is it now? 25 years old?
He he actually just gets stuck in the past.
Does he? So
the door just closes, yeah. And then they did a Christmas special years later where it's in the 60s, and he manages to get back forward in time to see all his people from what's the present day.
Yeah, and 1994 it was released. Yeah.
And it turns out that his wife in the future or the present or whatever, she had been pregnant when the door closed. So he missed out on having a kid.
Well,
that
good.
side of things. So it was a bit shit, really, actually.
Yeah. It was good at the time.
Yeah, it's weird. He attends his own birth.
God, I have to watch it. Right. Anyway, moving on. This is great podcasting stuff. No. The second story is at the Vanishing Hotel in France. So this allegedly took place in the early 1970s. It involves the inexplicable disappearance of a hotel, baffling those who experienced it and those who have heard the story since.
It disappeared.
Well, wait and hear the story. Hang on. So the tale of the Vanishing Hotel primarily revolves around two English couples, Jeff and Pauline Simpson, and Len and Cynthia Gisby. In 1979, the couples were travelling through France on the way to Spain for a holiday. As they drove through the French countryside, they decided to find a place to stay for the night. What transpired next became the subject of numerous books, articles, and debates. Now, according to the accounts, the couple were driving through a rural area when they stumbled upon an old-fashioned hotel. The hotel, which appeared to be from another era, had a quaint charm with wooden beams and antique furnishings. The travellers noted the unusual vintage decor and the staff's old-fashioned clothing. However, they weren't overly concerned, attributing it to the hotel's historical theme. They were shown to their rooms, which were similarly furnished with antique themes, and the night passed without incident. Although they did note some peculiarities, such as the absence of telephones and seemingly outdated currency used to settle their bill the next morning. The couples continued on their journey to Spain, and on their return trip decided to stay at the same charming hotel. However, when they retraced their route, they could find no trace of the hotel. Puzzled, they asked locals about the establishment, only to be told that no such hotel had ever existed in the area.
Wow.
Efforts to locate it proved fruitless, and the couple were left mystified by the experience. So, yeah.
So no one actually said there was a hotel like 100 years ago here. It was just
no. I sort of ad-libbed a little bit because I said that no such hotel had ever existed, but I added the word ever. So they just said no hotel exists in the area. So yeah, there's no indication there was one in the past. But it sounds a bit kind of like,
that's quite creepy.
Yeah, they stayed there as well.
Yeah.
And then all the people were dressed up.
Were they like, hang on, this room only costs 1 penny for the night?
Yeah, well, they said that cheaper. Outdated currency.
Yeah, I suppose so.
I mean, but then like there'd be evidence then, wouldn't there? Because they'd have the currency.
Yeah.
They'd have the change.
I mean, surely they stole some like towels and soap and stuff, because that's what you do, isn't it?
Didn't have towels in them days, did they?
No.
Like, yeah. And I mean, that's the other thing. Like, you get up in the morning, it's like, why am I washing in a horse trough? It's supposed to be luxury.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a bit weird. Why am I drinking mead with hay in it and stuff?
Yeah.
So I don't know. But yeah, so for the last two stories, so this is a really famous kind of time slip area.
Okay.
Bold Street in Liverpool. You ever heard? You've probably been to Bold Street in Liverpool. It's not too far away. Yeah. It's just down by. It's not far up away from Lime Street station. You sort of walk around. There's been loads and loads of like time slip incidents. There seems to be some sort of thing happening. Right, Bold Street is really famous. There's loads. This is just two of many, many stories. And the first one, it happened in 1996. So a chap called Frank set off with his wife to go shopping in Liverpool back in 1996. His wife decided that she wanted to go and buy a book at Waterstones, at a large bookstore, and they started to walk towards the area of the shop. As they approached Bold Street, Frank decided he wanted to go to another shop first, but bumped into a friend and stopped to chat in the street, and his wife went ahead without him. Moments later, Frank said goodbye, visited his shop, and turned to go back to meet his wife. After reaching Bold Street, he headed towards the bookstore, and as he approached, he glanced up and was surprised to see the name Cripps above the door. As he was about to cross over to see what was going on, a van swept past him with the name Cardins on the side. The van driver honked his old-fashioned horn and drove past. Looking around, Frank suddenly realised that things were not quite right and what they should be. He looked at the cars driving past and realised that they were all old-fashioned vehicles, such as people would drive back in the 50s and 60s. And then he noticed the people. Men were wearing hats and macks, and the women were dressed in headscarves, full skirts, and had old-fashioned hairstyles, such as women wore just after the war. By this time, Frank was beginning to feel slightly freaked out. He carried on crossing the road and headed towards the store. As he got closer, he noticed through the window handbags, shoes, and umbrellas. Suddenly, he saw a young woman standing, looking totally bemused, up at the shop sign. She was wearing modern clothes, and as she saw him approach, smiled at him. Frank went into the shop, closely followed by the young woman. When they entered, he was surprised and pleased to see that it had indeed turned back into the bookshop. The young woman smiled, shook her head and said, "That was strange. I thought it was a new clothes shop." And then she walked away looking extremely puzzled.
Right.
So this may sound unlikely, but the odd thing about Frank was he was in fact a former police officer.
Right.
And he obviously used to dealing in facts and things like that. Definitely wasn't the type of person who would believe in the paranormal. Frank never stopped talking about it. Evidently, Cripps was a woman's shop that sold clothes and other goods, and Cardins was also a well-known livable firm that owned vans and drove around the city in the 1950s and 60s. So I mentioned uncanny at the beginning. So it took ages to find this other lady. You know, you mentioned that he walked into the shop.
Yeah.
So he walked into this Cripps shop, which was a woman's clothes shop, and then it just turned back into Waterstones. And then there's this other woman there. Now, for ages, they couldn't find this lady. Now, this uncanny with their resources, you know, the BBC funding and stuff, they managed to track her down. So if you go onto like the iPlayer and stuff, you can watch the episode, and she confirms the events. Like she says, yeah, it was really weird. There was people walking around in like 60s clothes, 50s clothes and stuff.
It's completely unconnected people telling the same story.
Telling the same story, yeah.
Mad.
So it's, very, very strange. And like I say, this Frank, he's not just some...
Yeah.
You know, he's a respected fellow, you know. And again, on Bold Street, so a young man named Sean So he's a bit of a wrong one. So this is in 2006.
Yeah.
So the first one was 1996. But this is now in 2006. So I wonder if there's a thing there. The
10-year thing.
So this young man, a bit of a wrong one. He's called Sean. He'd been shoplifting.
Right.
And he'd been caught, and he ran away from the security guard and headed down Hanover Street.
Okay.
Trying to shake the guard, Sean turned into a dead-end street called Brooks Alley. By this time, he was out of breath and started to get a tight sensation in his chest. He soon realised that actually it wasn't a problem with him, but it was the atmosphere around him.
Right.
He waited for the guard to come around the corner after him, but he never appeared.
Mm-hmm.
So, thinking he'd given him the slip, he walked back out and started to walk down Hanover Street again. But he soon realised that something was wrong. The road looked different, and so did the pavement. He noticed the cars driving by looked very old-fashioned, and the roadworks that he knew were there were now gone. Soon he saw that people around him were wearing strange clothes. Crossing over to Bold Street, he noticed that there were traffic lights where there weren't before, and bushes growing around the Lyceum near a bar he recognised. He carried on walking, realised that actually something was really odd. Then he began to panic, and he realised that somehow he'd stepped back in time, and the time slip was not going away. He remembered his cell phone. Taking it out of his pocket, he tried to get a signal, but obviously it didn't work. Eventually, he began to really panic, and he spotted a kiosk selling newspapers and headed over to that. Leaning over the stand, he took a look at the front page of the Daily Post, and there, in bold lettering, the date was the 18th of May, 1967.
Wow.
Speeding up his pace, he reached H. Samuel, the jeweller's, and tried his phone once again. This time it worked. Sighing with relief, he looked all around and realised that he had returned to the present. But the strange thing was, he could still see, down the end of the road, people walking around in 1967. By this time, Sean had seen enough and dived onto the bus to go home. It was then that he was interviewed, he contacted a local newspaper, and he stated 4 times over the exact same account.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's easy to suggest that Sean was making this up, but the strange tale doesn't end there. When the security guard was interviewed, he stated that when he ran after Sean and turned down the dead-end alley, Sean had completely disappeared.
Wow.
And when the newspapers checked the facts of Sean's story, they found that everything he said was historically accurate.
Well, yeah. So, again, it's like there doesn't seem a lot of incentive to make it up. You've got 4 different stories telling a kind of similar thing about time slips, and okay, the first one, they could write a book and make money out of it, but like the policeman finding the woman that was involved in the same case, telling the same story. You've got some chav or whatever by the sounds of it.
Yeah.
Why would he just make that up? It's a really random thing to make up.
Yeah. Okay. So I mean, they're all kind of like compelling cases, but I think if you look at them sort of case by case, you can sort of break them down, I reckon. So the first one, I think it's quite unusual because I think it's kind of like I said, it's like the grandmother of sort of time slips. So where have they got this idea from? Like, and the idea to surely at that time period, you think if I report stuff like this, people are going to think I'm crazy. But that being said, like they were academics, and maybe they were lovers. It's not, I don't know. It's debatable. So maybe they went on holiday, had a bit of fun, overactive imagination, and then said to each other, "Do you know what? What if we said that actually happened? What if that was real? Like, that's a possibility."
See, it's the least believable, to be honest, because there's no to me, there's no inconvenience in it. It's just this nice little story. Oh, we were walking and then we were back in time stuff. Whereas the other 3 stories to me were all inconveniences.
See, no, I kind of disagree, right?
Right, go on.
Because I think the second one is the most unbelievable.
Right. Okay.
Right, because what did I say? It was 1970. Let me just double check. 1970 something, wasn't it? 1979. right? So these people are driving through France.
Yeah.
There's no sat nav, right? They go to this hotel.
Mm-hmm.
They think it's a bit weird and a bit old fashioned, and they get given some weird coins as their change. And then they go and spend 2 weeks or 3 or however long in Spain,
Yeah.
drive back trying to find this place,
Mm-hmm.
and they can't. And
Yeah.
they
So
go,
just
that's a bit weird. So it's it could have just been an old fashioned hotel. They
yeah.
could have been given francs, which they're not used to, and thought, oh, they're a bit old fashioned,
Mm-hmm.
And it just they just couldn't find it because they didn't have the sat nav or the technologies. All they've got is these maps going. Oh, I'm sure it was down here. I'm sure it was down.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's more likely than. I mean, the pair of them. To be fair, the first two are a bit dubious.
Yeah.
Now the Bold Street ones. Now these are really compelling because these aren't the only two. There's lots and lots of stories.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's lots of stories about time slips, but the two Bold Street ones really are kind of very, very strange.
Yeah.
I think, like,
But
is
like
there
I said,
something there?
they're more like an inconvenience. You just got someone trying to get about the day, and then you go, "Oh, hang on a minute, I'm in the fucking 50s here,"
Yeah, this is a bit
and
weird. And then
they
before they
just
know it,
want,
it's changed back.
yeah, they just want back out of it. They get back out and they go, "What the hell was that?"
Yeah,
Whereas, like the first two, like you said, they're a bit kind of glamorous. They're a bit there's like a little bit storybook, and
yeah. The first one definitely a storybook. I think the second
yeah,
one could easily be explained by they just didn't know where they were.
mm-hmm,
But the last two, particularly the one with Frank, he's like
mm-hmm,
an officer, and they found the lady that was
yeah.
there with her who confirms that story. And like
But
I say, there's many others.
but the last one, the kind of delinquent fella, like you think if someone that sort of mentality that's running from the police and stuff to come up with the detail, the date, and everything. You think if he was
Well,
making up,
exactly.
he'd just go, "Oh yeah, it was like I was in the '60s," and then all of a sudden I wasn't.
And
Like,
and bearing in mind he was being chased for shoplifting, so why
yeah,
would he then go to the press and go, "Well, I was on the run from some security guards. I just nabbed
yeah,
some
yeah,
perfume from Boots,
that's
but I
true.
want to tell you this story." Like, you
Mhm.
just wouldn't, would you? So things
Mm.
just don't add up, really.
But I know what you're saying about the hotel one because quite a few times, in fact, this summer I'm driving through northern France with my family,
Oh, lovely.
uh, and we've done it with my dad and my mum and my granddad down south
Hmm.
of France, and I did it when I was much younger, and a lot of these little French villages look the same, and that's no slight on
Exactly.
them. They're beautiful little villages, but they all look the same.
Yeah, they're very
Uh,
similar, and it's easy to mistake one from the other.
yeah,
I mean, you
yeah,
can even do it in this country as well. You go to one
mhm,
place and think, I recognise this place, and it's somewhere
yeah,
100 miles away. It's like, I think it's very easy to make that mistake. And with regards to the old fashioned people being dressed old fashioned, it might just be that they were in a different type of dress because they were out in a rural village or whatever.
that's it. Yeah, you
So I
can. I
think,
mean, you can get countries where the parts of Germany where they wear all that traditional gear and
yeah,
stuff like that,
exactly.
and then you go to other parts and it's really modern. These things happen.
Exactly. Yeah. So
Funny
that's
enough,
it.
sorry, I was going to say when you say about the money, one of those times driving through France, I was quite young. We stopped in this little restaurant, and the guy kept showing my dad this bottle of wine. And my dad, like, it was 10 francs was a pound. And my dad
Okay.
got his decimals wrong because in France, if we write 1,000, you would write 1,000.
Yeah.
Well, in France, they would write 1,000. My dad got it wrong and he ordered this bottle of wine. So they're halfway through the bottle of wine, we're eating our dinner, and we were we were quite poor at the time, and he cobbled money together for this holiday. Halfway through the bottle of wine dinner, my mum's looking at the menu and she goes, "Blair, that wine, that's not £5, that's £50." And he's got his numbers wrong. All of a sudden, he's spitting it back in the glass. He's got the waiter over and going, "I think this wine's corked. This wine's corked. It's not very nice. We'll just take a bottle of the house wine instead." The
Oh
guy
no! Did
was
you get?
like, "No, monsieur, you pay." It was like not a chance. He ended up having
Oh,
to pay it. The last, I mean,
yeah. I
that was
think
like the petrol money to get home. Um,
nice try.
yeah, yeah, but no, like I kind of I really want to believe in time slips. I really do.
Yeah,
Has there ever actually been a real life story about a plane going missing and turning up years later? Has that always been Hollywood?
that's Lost, isn't it?
Yeah, but there's loads of stories about, planes that go into a
It,
lightning storm and then a year later they land and no times,
yeah, I mean, there's a story. I'm sure it's probably a hoax where a guy meets himself from the future,
right.
and that was a bit. I did find that I might do that on another
Hmm.
one, but it's not because I wanted to just do time slips. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's all a bit weird. I mean, time travel, who knows? Because we don't know everything, do we? I mean, like Stephen Hawking. I remember Stephen
Mhm.
Hawking. I remember him saying, "Well, I know that time travel doesn't exist because I invite everyone to my birthday party. If you come from the future, time travel back and come to my birthday party, and no one from the future turned up."
Right.
But then in my mind, I'm like, why would the fuck would you want to go to his birthday party? Like,
I
it's
know.
just like it'd be boring. It's
Yeah.
like full of eggheads just talking shit. Like, oh, I'd give that one a miss.
Yeah. See, time isn't real, is it? It's something they made up to sell watches. It's like,
Well, yeah. I mean, how do we know today's Friday? You've just been told it's
yeah,
Friday. Could be any day. Like,
it's just life moves on, and you can't go back. Of course, you can't go back.
well, how do you
It's
know?
But who's the new science guy that does all the shows and everything now? He's very, very clever chap. Dark hair. Uh, is it Graham something? Brian
Brian
Cox.
Cox. Yeah,
Graham Cox is a guy at Blur, isn't he?
yeah.
Uh,
That's
Brian
Cox.
Cox. I was watching a program with him, and he actually shows how two things traveling at a slightly different plane can end up in a different time zone.
Yeah. That's time travel. That's time travel.
And
Isn't
he's like,
necessarily what you think is in like
yeah,
going. If you watched Interstellar? Have you ever seen that film?
no. Oh,
Uh, what's his guy? The guy I can't remember his name now. The really famous director who did Oppenheimer and
oh right, yeah.
Batman and stuff. So that explains it really well. So
Mhm.
basically, if you're traveling at a certain speed and somebody else is traveling at a slower speed, it kind of you're traveling faster than them, so you're traveling in time.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, and so I think they've done experiments where they send sort of digital watches up into space, and it's a minute faster when it comes back down and stuff.
Mhm.
So yeah, time travel essentially is possible. But I mean, I'm not a scientist, but I don't think we know everything.
Yeah.
So who knows, man? Who knows? But it'd be cool to kind of experience a bit of a time slip. You would panic, like
Yeah, yeah.
you kind of go, "What's going on?" I don't know. And then before you realise what was going on, you'd be back in, and it would just mess with your head.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, people can have hallucinations. There was a period in my life I've never really talked much about, but I kept having this weird like episode where I could be walking down the street, I could be sitting doing my work, and I'd like not like time slip, I'd like almost like in my brain I'd slipped another place, and I could be in a restaurant making pizzas, as if I was in this
What?
completely mad place. One really vivid one was like all of a sudden I was like a chef in a restaurant, and it was like as if I was really there, and it lasted 2 or 3 minutes, and then I went back to like in my head where I was, almost like a really vivid daydream, but I felt really ill after it, and
Oh
that
well,
happened
that's a bit
over
weird.
about 6 months. That happened quite a few times.
Oh god,
I think I was
like
younger.
out of body experience type
I was
thing.
like in my early 20s. I remember. I think my mum was the one person I talked to about it, and she was like, "Yeah, just fucking. I wouldn't really
Yeah,
worry about
sort
it."
yourself out, you
Yeah,
stupid.
but like what I'm saying is like the mind can play like these mad tricks on you.
Oh yeah,
It
of course.
can,
Yeah, I mean that's the other explanation, I
yeah,
suppose, isn't it? Like just people.
um,
But I don't. Why would you think of that though? And like why? Like the Bold Street thing,
mhm.
it always seems to be the same time.
Yeah, yeah,
It's not like so one person's got this sort of like had this sort of vivid daydream
mhm.
type thing, and then another excuse me, another person another person's
You're
come
all right.
along and I'm all right, yeah. Another person's come along and had almost the same one. It's
Yeah,
just
yeah.
very very weird.
Going back to the
Uh,
same time.
yeah, very strange.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Anyway, there is absolutely loads and loads of stuff on this subject.
Mhm.
Podcasts, YouTube stuff like I said, the Uncanny BBC thing did it way better than I could ever do. So if you're interested, go and have a look. It's fascinating stuff. It's really creepy, and I kind of like it.
Yeah, I'd like to go and have another look at it.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
when you said earlier, one of my dreams is to have, when you talk about people, what superpowers would you love? I'd love the watch that could stop time. Just that you could stop time, see things like I'm always working hard, and I've got 5 kids, and I've got my wife, and I just feel like I've never got enough time for anyone.
It's not
Imagine
as
you
good as
could,
the Sky Remote. It's not as good as the Sky Remote thing though, because it's the same thing, isn't it?
yeah, but
You stop in time, but with the Sky Remote, you pause, play, rewind, fast forward.
yeah,
You've got your favourites, Roman brothel, and then you can put your dates in and just go
yeah.
there. I know what you mean, but Sky Remote's the way forward.
I watched a film and it had Bill Nye in it and some other lad that's quite famous. Can't remember his name. And it was a cupboard he could go into to go back in time in his house. And he
All
said
right.
he lived every day twice. So he lived his day and dealt with all the shit. And then at the end of the day, he went back and he lived it again, knowing what to expect and dealt with it all better
A bit like
and
Groundhog
stuff.
Day, I suppose. But
Yeah, just
yeah,
felt
there
like
was like a
every
creep
day I
show
did that.
thing that was similar to that,
Yeah.
and he had like a cupboard,
Mm-hmm.
and that kind of just froze time. And there's this guy, and it was like, don't. It was like, as long as you take the key in with you, you're fine because you can let yourself out.
Right.
But basically, if you don't, you get locked in, and then you basically
Fucked.
die in there. Yeah. So, and he was like some solicitor and stuff. So he'd go
Yeah.
in, do all his work, and then come out, and it'd be like 3 hours. But he was aging inside the thing,
Right. Yeah.
so he'd be like, so a day would go by, but like 2 days would go by for him. So
Right.
when he was like 35, he looked like he was 50.
Mm-hmm.
You know, yeah, and then in the end, I think his kid gets locked in it by mistake. So it's a bit like, it's pretty cool, man. It's good. But anyway, we're going on a bit now, aren't we?
Ah, that was really
So
interesting. A little bit
yeah, thank
different.
you very much. It's a very interesting subject. As I say, I urge you to go and look into it further if you are interested. But that's been this week's Most Dangerous Podcast. I'm James. You're Fraser. Thank you very much for listening. If you like what we do, then support us any way you can. Drop us an email, drop us a Facebook thing, like and subscribe and give us a review, blah, blah, blah. Thank you very much. Good night.
Thanks, James. Good night. Take care. Bye bye.